Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maximo and I'm here doing a little bit of a rant about Danganronpa V3. I apologize that I didn't get a video out on this sooner, but here's the thing. I thought I was down for review code and I was waiting and it was about a week before launch and then the reviews started coming out and I'm like, oh, I guess I wasn't down for code after all, so I had to go and ask for one. Thankfully they did get me one, but yeah, just FYI. So this little rant going on here is going to be about the first 2 chapters in the game, including their trials and just their regular runaround times. So there will be no spoilers past that, but I do want to talk about what happens in them, because there's going to be more first impressions than anything else. And I do apologize for not doing a video, like an actual gameplay video, but the problem is, Chapter 1 is like 5 hours long, and I know people are going to be like, well, why didn't you do it like you did with Danganronpa and Danganronpa 2, where you did the entire first chapter all in one video? That was fun, sure, but 5 hours at the very least, it's too much. It's absolutely too much for me. I can't do a 5-hour video. Even the longest live streams I've done, I've only gotten to about 4 before I've been half wrecked, so I can't really do that. And yeah, so if you want to see what the game looks like, there is a free demo up on the store, and I would actually tell you to go play that, because it'll give you a better idea of the game's mechanics and how they work, better than listening to me talk about them will. So, you know, go do that if you're curious. Just in case you didn't know that demo was there. It's there, and it's not part of the actual game. It's a chapter they made up specifically for the demo. So, there you go. Anyway, let's start talking about Danganronpa V3. So the first thing that needs to be brought attention to is that it's a canon reboot, or canon reboot. I don't know how you would pronounce it, but it's one or the other. And by canon reboot, I mean it's not the original cast that was in Danganronpa 1 or 2. It's not their continuing story. Their continuing story has been pushed off to some anime somewhere I haven't gotten around to watching yet, which is kind of annoying considering that it defeats the bloody point of these games being a game series. So yeah, that is one of the more annoying things about this, because I actually wanted to see what happened to them without having to go and watch a bloody anime, especially like 2 anime that run like in the same time frame that you have to jump between episodes through. It's all just confusing, annoying nonsense. But yeah, you have basically a whole new cast of characters and an entirely new world, as far as I can tell. And that's pretty much it, really. I mean, they haven't really told me much about the outside world yet, so I'm just going to make the assumption that there's no connection to the previous games whatsoever. But yeah, I got to admit, I'm not very satisfied with the idea of the 3 being a reboot, while the Danganronpa actual story of the first 2 games gets wrapped up in some bloody anime, I just got to say. So, might as well talk about the cast, and the problem is I don't really want to talk that much about the cast, because most of them aren't that interesting. That's kind of an issue. The thing about this game is that whenever a character starts to get interesting is when they fucking get killed off. I'm not even kidding. Everyone who doesn't have the spotlight flashed on them, except maybe Gunter, isn't really that interesting in this game, which is really kind of frustrating. Everyone seems to have that one major, like, personality hook, which is what they rely on, and this actually comes to bite the game in the ass hard in 2 of this particular characters, but we'll get on to that. But yeah, for the most part, most of them are just not that interesting. Even after going through well, to be fair, I actually went through social links with most of the interesting characters, but even with that, it wasn't particularly great. It's kind of weird, but yeah, it works about the same way as the other Danganronpa games do. In fact, the entire game seems to be a full-on just going back to Danganronpa 1 style of things, where you wander around a little bit, you do a bit of story, then you get free time where you get to talk to people and increase your relationship with them. Then you go to the murder, then you get the trial. That's basically the whole outset of it. That's how it's been for the first 2 chapters. That's how it's been in every chapter in the previous game. It doesn't really look to be changing here. But yeah, most of the characters just aren't that interesting. They spend an absolute ton of time in these things. Like, seriously, the first chapter is like 5 to 6 hours long, and the second chapter is about the same length. Like, my full game time, once I got to the end of chapter 2, was 12 hours on the dot. So, the fact that they managed to make all these chapters so bloody long, but make none of the characters interesting because they're so over-reliant on this one gimmick, and you can't really find out that much about them, is a massive pain in the ass, especially when you consider that there's the whole thing about the way the game's social links work. It's not called social links. They call them, I think, relationship fragments. But the way they work is that you get free time around the midpoint of every chapter, and that means you can go and spend time with a couple of people, and you have to give them gifts in order to get them to talk to you properly. Which is annoying, because if you don't give them the right gift, they won't talk to you. I'm not even kidding. They have to love the gift, or you have to go to them twice with gifts they just think are okay for them to talk to you. And even then, you don't get much out of it. And you don't get very many free time slots. So, finding out interesting things about these characters is kind of annoying. I don't know why I think of it so much in Danganronpa V3 versus, like, Danganronpa 1 and 2, because Danganronpa 1 and 2 are actually fairly more interesting than this. I don't recall having this problem in the first Danganronpa game by far, which is a very odd thing. I'm not sure if I've gotten worse about it or if the game's gotten worse about it, and that's kind of scary, actually. Maybe I've just been spoiled too much by Utawara Ramono, because, you know, that is an absolutely fantastic series, but yeah. And it's not really helped out by the fact that, well, there are a few things in the game that makes the character, I don't want to call it diversity, like just the range of characters that just makes it feel relatively boring. And the fact is, there are two characters who are absolute fucking cunts, which is quite unfortunate because they're both women. But seriously, there are two characters in this game who are some of the worst characters I've ever seen in any sort of visual novel ever. That would be Miyu, and that would be Tenko, because she's named after the twin tail puppies in Tukiren. But they are absolute cunts. One of them is just constantly swearing her head off, and the other one is constantly calling everybody a degenerate male. That's seriously all they do. I'm not even joking. Like, they've got like one little weakness in each of them. Like, Tenko is heavily protective of the initial suspect of the first case, and Miyu gets backs down and becomes a crying little bitch whenever she's talked back to. However, both of these don't happen anywhere near often enough, and they are just some of the most obnoxious characters I've ever seen in the bloody VN. It is honestly horrible. It really is. The game also has this really, as I said before, the interesting people in this game die really quickly. Like, the only really interesting character at the beginning of Chapter 1 is the one character whose ultimate talent you don't learn. And they die. Damn it. And then we'll get on to the what the next part is. Then you've got the second chapter. The one guy who didn't want to live, but then decides they want to live, ends up getting killed off anyway. And then the one character you don't really know that much about, but then you get a massive amount of backstory to them to actually make them interesting before they die. I'm talking like minutes before they die. Yeah, that just, I don't know. Like, the game seems actively designed to make you care about the people that get killed and nobody else in the meantime. It's retarded. It's legit retarded. Like, I really don't know what they're going for here, but the story design in this one just seems way off base to what you should really be doing. You should be making me care about everyone. I should be able to care about everyone so that when someone does end up dead, I actually, you know, care about it. But it's just, yeah, it's just depressing. Like, the one guy who was interesting just gets killed before he can actually be interesting, which is the most annoying thing. So I might as well talk about the case mechanics. So as I said before, you go through the free time thing, and that's kind of annoying. Then you've got the trials, and the trials return from the first and second game, and they're about the same. There are a few extra mini games they've popped on top. Nothing particularly over the top. We'll get into them. But the main thing I like about these new, the main thing I like about Danganronpa V3's trials is that not only do you, I don't remember if you have the ability to lie in Danganronpa 2. I believe they might have introduced it there. But here, if they did, well, you know, call me an idiot. It's been ages since I've played Danganronpa 2. Give me a break, guys. But in Danganronpa V3, not only can you lie, but you can agree with people too, which makes for an interesting dynamic where you have to figure out who to agree with, who to lie to, and who to obviously break their arguments. And then you've got all the new minigames, which suck. Oh man, I don't know if this is just me getting over the entire bloody Danganronpa minigame thing, but a lot of these minigames seem absolutely retarded. I get that they're meant to be like you working through the process of the character thinking through a particular way, right? So, you know, trying to get them to the answer via some sort of simulation of mental stimuli. However, they're all shit. And let me tell you why. A bunch of them are just weird puzzle games. There's one thing that you have to do where it's like a half and half trial, where half the room is thinking one thing, half the room is thinking another, and they rise up. And literally the only thing you have to do in it is find the correct word for the sentence that's being said, and then just press the button. It's really that simple. It's actually kind of retarded. There's one where you have to drive down a road outrun style and collect boxes off the side of the road, then choose an unbelievably obvious set of answers. And it just seems completely unnecessary. What are some of the other ones? There's one where you have to use like a sword instead of a gun to slice at words, and then you have to like break the discussion the same way you would in the regular shooting sections. And it is just a little odd. Like, it just feels like a weird thing. I get that it's meant to simulate like one-on-one discussion, but still, it doesn't work as well as I would have hoped. And then there's the new Hangman's Gambit, which just seems entirely unnecessary to have, just because, you know, you would think you'd think of the word just immediately and not letter by letter. But yeah, I don't know why the mini games are all so weird now. I wish they would have thought of some better ways to handle them. Like, admittedly, I kind of like the puzzle one where you have to press a button and it will, there's a bunch of squares on screen, a grid of squares, and whenever you press the button on one of them, all the squares of the same color disappear, and then everything else around it gets flipped, and you have to look for a specific object, because you can kind of extrapolate that to the person thinking about a series of objects in a row and then coming to a conclusion of what the right thing is. You can kind of get what's going on there, and I wish all of the minigames were more like that, but all of them just seem a bit silly in that sense. But yeah, the actual discussion part, it's alright. The rest, not so much. There is something else that I wanted to talk about as well, and that when you're moving the cursor around to fire the bullet at the thing that you want to either disprove or agree with or, you know, cause a lie about, the way the words are structured makes it really hard to hit them. Like, I know this sounds like a weird problem, makes me sound like I'm bad at games, which, let's be fair, is true, but it's surprisingly hard, especially when they've introduced this new system, which is utterly retarded, by the way, called the V trigger system, where if you hold the R button to focus in, you will see a small little red crosshair that you can shoot at. And if you hit it, you get bonus points. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make your argument more powerful. It's literally just arcade gameplay for the sake of arcade gameplay. And I don't know why it's there. I legitimately don't. It doesn't really make that much sense to me. It's adding an arcade thing into a bloody visual novel. It doesn't make any sense at all. Combine that with the fact that it's actually really fucking hard to hit the words to begin with, and it just becomes quite the annoyance. I've decided once I go back, I was playing on the normal difficulties. There's like 3 difficulties for logic, which gives you a different amount of things that you can use to shoot at contradictions. And there's also a difficulty that turns down all the arcade stuff, and I'll be turning both down to 0. I have the same problem in this game I did with the previous 2, which I blame myself for as much as I blame the game for, but there are still some things that just kind of make no sense, or things that are just like, you know, you think you can use one bullet to counteract something, but no, you have to use that bullet on a different set of words that are almost exactly the same. That happened to me a couple of times here, but I did manage to get through both trials without screwing up completely. Just, but, you know, it got close a couple of times. There are a couple of things about the case structure as well. Like, well, to be fair, I kind of want to save this until I talk about the big twist of the first structure, which is actually pretty close, because I don't really have that much else to talk about, really. But the whole case structure is, the whole game structure in general, really, is all really close to the first game, and I'm really not that big of a fan of it, just because I was hoping for something a little bit different when they rebooted it, but no. That and the music, like, they've changed the music. There's no guy just going, ooh, da 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 dee da 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 da, whatever that is. I know that sounds like the stupidest thing, but look up the Danganronpa class trial music. You'll understand what I mean immediately. But they changed the music, and it means that doesn't come up as often, and it's also surprisingly quiet, except when it's surprisingly loud. But we'll get to the technical issues. So, there's a reason why you aren't allowed, well, technically right now, the game is still under embargo, but I'm saving this video for when the embargo is up, just so I can, you know, just so I can say, well, now I can actually talk about these all these spoilers safely without, you know, nicer coming down on top of my head. But there's a reason that they haven't let you stream past the middle of the first trial. And this is a thing that will be implemented in the console versions. The PS4 version, I mean. You can't actually stream past halfway through the first trial. That's because the game pulls a switcheroo on you, and I don't know what inspired them to do this. So you start out as a lady. I think her name is it's not Akane, it's something else. Kaid, that's it, Kaid. You start out as the ultimate pianist. Excuse me, I am very immature. And the whole thing, the whole investigation, the whole going around the first time you get free time, all of that, that's all as Kaid. And then you go to the actual trial. And this trial, the first trial, is an absolutely horrible trial because it relies on things you weren't able to see at that point. Because I'm going to have to basically spoil the entirety of the first case here. So if you really want to, if you want to remain as spoiler-free as possible, despite the fact that I already hinted at who got killed, well, you might want to walk away now. But anyway, so here's the drill. Kaid walks into the trial. You think you've been the good guy the entire time, right? You think you have been on the level. You've been doing all the investigation. You've been doing all of that. And guess what? Turns out you're not. You end up going down the route where you think the guy who's been helping you out the whole time, the ultimate detective, is the actual villain who did the first kill. However, halfway through the trial, the protagonist switches. You end up becoming the ultimate detective, who was a guy. I can't remember his name. I think it's Shuichi. That's it. And you end up disproving that you are the culprit as Shuichi, and then proving Kaid is the culprit, the person you were just playing. And the only reason the game manages to get away with this is because there's a bunch of hidden events that you don't get to see while you are piloting Kaid. This is retarded for multiple reasons. For one, again, you wouldn't really understand what's going on unless you saw everything and managed to come up with the reasoning. So, there's a couple of things that happen. She takes a shot put ball, she arranges books in a specific way, and she rolls the shot put ball down this elaborate little vent in order to do the murder in the first place. You don't see any of these happen while you are in Kaid's shoes. You get like little flashbacks once you get to this point that show extra text that you did not see beforehand describing certain actions. And it is retarded. It is absolutely retarded, and it comes out of left field. To the point where, when you have to accuse someone in the trial, I had no fucking clue what I was supposed to do because I was missing information that, by all rights, I should have had. And it was legitimately the most retarded thing I've played in a Danganronpa game. And this is including a series where the murder weapon was a girl's swimsuit filled up with rocks. Yeah, I don't understand that one either. But the other thing that's stupid about this as well is that it goes against the entirety of the character of Kaid that's been built up to this point. She has been built up as the headstrong, go-getter, big speech-giving protagonist that you're used to in this series, right? Like, they're the ones who stand up and say, I have to fight for the truth, I have to fight against despair, yada, 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 yada. And then she goes and kills someone because the ultimate detective suggested that the person who knows about the hidden door in the bookcase might be the evil guy. And that turned out to be wrong. It was just pure speculation, and she just runs with it. She just absolutely runs with it. She just thinks to herself, oh, that might be the guy, let's fucking kill him. And it's dumb. It's really dumb. It goes against the entire character that she's been built up to be up to this point. At least that's what the dub, well, not so much the dub, but the writing has been told to me about, right? That's what the writing's been telling me. still, just really dumb. Then once the first trial is over, she gets executed. So you don't see her again. But her quote-unquote final wish is for Shuichi, the detective, to carry on her wish of getting everyone out of there alive, you know? Right? You know, kind of coming back around to the original character she was built up with in the first place. And he agrees to do it, because of course he does. It's a Danganronpa game. It wouldn't be a Danganronpa game if there wasn't bloody speeches along those lines. And you end up being the protagonist is him. And he just ends up... He was, like, really shy and constrained before, because, well, he didn't really remember anything, and he wasn't a particularly big fan of being the ultimate detective in the first place. But then, once the beginning of the second chapter rolls around, he's fine. He just gets up and on his horse, he takes his hat off, he becomes more socially open, and he just, yeah, that's pretty much it. He just becomes more socially open, and just, that's it, basically. He's basically become Kaid 2.0. And I don't really see the point of the switcheroo. I really don't. It makes a character who could have been interesting go entirely against their preset character, and it just puts in a twist out of nowhere that by the end of the second chapter really has no effect on anything, as far as I can tell, right? In the grand scheme of things. I mean, it doesn't really count as plot development if you end up back at square one anyway. At least that's what I think. And that is really frustrating. There are a couple of other things I would like to talk about as well, but, well, no but really. I'm going to talk about them anyway. So, Monokuma is back, and he's got the best voice of the entire dub cast, because the dub cast isn't really that good. A bunch of them are alright. Pretty basic, middle-of-the-road stuff. A couple of them are really fucking annoying, like Miyu. And, what else is there? The Mono Cubs. He has 5 Mono Cubs, which are like smaller Monokumas with different patterns and different personalities. I hate all of them. I legitimately do not like any of them. I cringe every time they come on screen. I find their writing to be annoying as hell. I find them to be just frustrating to even exist in this game. They do not need to exist. They're just there to be annoying as hell. Half the time they show up, they have a point to give out, but they dance around the issue so much that I kind of ended up missing one or two of the things they were actually trying to bloody tell me before another character ended up bringing it up anyway, because that's how these sort of games work, right? They have this annoying tendency to repeat themselves too often. And there's a couple of other things as well, like, the thing about the dub is that NIS America has started to go political. They have 2 references to Make America Great Again. I'm not even kidding. 2. This isn't the time. This isn't the place. Like, even Monokuma, when he's reading out the line that has someone saying, "Make this country great again," he does it in a mock Donald Trump voice. It comes out of nowhere. It's legitimately frustrating. It's a game about Japanese kids being trapped in a Japanese school doing Japanese things, and they feel the need to put Donald Trump in there. What the fuck, guys? You're going Funimation style. Don't go Funimation style. That is stupid. Do not do that. Bad, Nicer. Bad. You might think I've got nothing but, bad things to say about Danganronpa V3, and to be fair, I'm finding it very hard to come up with positive things. I really couldn't tell you. I mean, after playing Utawara Ramono, after playing that, coming to this is like, it's like staying in a 5-star hotel then going down to like a 2-star. It's crazy just how much of a difference there is in just writing quality and voice quality. Oh, by the way, I should talk about, technical difficulties and stuff can wait a second, but yeah, it's just the amazing difference between the 2 games, considering I only just recently played Utawara Ramono. The big difference is just astounding. I don't know if... That's why I say, I don't know if it's the game that's gotten worse or if it's me that's gotten higher standards, but it's one way or another, it's still disappointing considering that I actually enjoy Danganronpa 1 and 2, but there you go. Technical quality. Pretty bad. I gotta say, like, I already talked about not being able to hit the words in debates and stuff like that. I don't know if that's a technical issue or if it's just me being sucky or if it's just the way the game's designed in general and it's not a bug or anything, but worth saying about it anyway. The voice quality is bad. They have actively said that they are going to put an add-on up on the PlayStation Store to make the voices better. And Jesus Christ, do you need it? It sounds like they're coming through on bad radio half the time. The voices are just really badly compressed. Like, even though there isn't as much of it as there is in a game like Utawara Ramono, which kind of makes no sense to me. I mean, how does a game like Utawara Ramono get fantastic voice quality like it does throughout the entire thing where every single line is voiced, and then you've got Danganronpa V3, which has like half the lines voiced at best, and then just a couple of extra like little sound effects here and there for lines that aren't voiced? How does it have badly compressed voices? I really don't know, especially since it's meant to be one of Spike Chunsoft's biggest projects these days, but I don't know. Also, no Japanese dub. Don't ask me why, I don't know. I looked through the menus and I couldn't see them, so that is just, that is a bad thing. I would have liked to have seen what the Japanese voices were like, because I've heard that a very famous Japanese VA was Monokuma, and I've wanted to hear that performance, but I guess I don't get to see it. And there are a couple of other things as well, like the audio balancing is a bit off, and I'm not entirely sure what the cause of this is. So all the sliders start out in about the middle. I turned up the voice acting because I couldn't bloody hear it half the time over the background music. Sometimes it just overwrites it completely, and sometimes it just completely disappears. I don't know what the deal with the background music is, but they have fucked up the sound mixing something else. I don't really know what's going on there. There's some frame rate drops, especially when you're loading into new scenes or swapping back and forth quickly. There's also this weird effect that makes it look like the screen's being rained on for a second or two while everything loads up. And I don't know what the deal is with that, but the technical performance of the whole thing isn't particularly great. And I've had the game crash on me once. Now, this was a weird kind of crash where I'm just sitting there, just tapping the screen, going through the entirety of the, just all the text and all that, just letting it go, reading as I go along, not listening to any of the voices or anything like that. Then the game just stopped. I had the dialogue box on screen with the name of the character who was supposed to be talking at the time, a blank box, and just the CG art in front, and I could still hear the music, but no text was coming through. Couldn't hit square to get to the system menu, couldn't hit any other button to do anything. I had to reset the entire game, so it cost me about half an hour of progress. Thankfully, that half an hour was just a hop, skip, and a jump, and then just holding R for 5 minutes away. So, I just figured I should bring that up. But after that, I started saving every half hour just to be safe. Because, if that can happen once, it can definitely happen again. And apparently there's a bunch of end-game content as well. Like, they end up bringing a lot of the Danganronpa 1 and 2 characters back for the end-game content. And there's apparently this weird card battling RPG thing that comes up at the end of the game, but I honestly don't know if I'm going to get that far. That's the reason why I'm doing this first impressions video, because honestly, my impressions of the game past the first two cases have been, including the first two cases, have been terrible. And I do have one last thing to say. So the game does try and create this whole mystery of what's going on outside the little bit of floor space that the game takes place in, right? It's got the same mystery the Danganronpa 1 had, where you're wondering what the fuck is going on. They kind of ruin it. I mean, the very first image you see in Chapter 3 is a bunch of meteors coming to strike the Earth. The entire game has been something along the lines of, so far, saying something along the lines of, there's this huge calamity going on outside, and we don't know what it is yet. Let's try and figure out what it is. Turns out it's a fucking meteor strike. Even if it isn't, and there's a twist in this game, which there probably is, because it's Danganronpa, to be fair, it feels like the entire mystery of what's going on outside is gone. It really does. I saw that one scene after I saved at the very end of Chapter 2. It gives you the prompt to save, and then immediately you just get hit with this, and it's like, well, where's the mystery again? Other than, like, finding out who the mastermind is, who probably is one of the kids in the class, because that's who it was the last two times. Just... yeah, I don't know. I'm not enjoying Danganronpa V3 anywhere near as much as I did 1 or 2, and I can't find myself finishing it anytime soon. So, I hope that gives you a rough idea of what I think of Danganronpa V3. At least so far. If I do finish the game anytime within the next few weeks, I will put another video up saying, hey, here's what the rest of the game was like and here's what I thought about it. But don't count on it. This has been Blue Maxima, and I will see you all next time.